Welcome online, whoever you are, wherever you are. There is a exercise or a game that gets played probably on playgrounds and varsity lecture rooms from time to time. I would imagine it definitely gets used in psychologists' offices. And somewhere along the line, you've probably been involved in this game where someone will say, "What is the first word that comes to mind when I say?" So let's do an example together. What is the first word that comes to your mind when I say chocolate? I think a lot of you might say or think delicious, or if you're a newlywed and you're dating, you may say romance. For the rest of us that have been married for a long time, we think calories. What is the first word that comes to mind if I say holidays? Some think berg, others think bush, others say beach, others think expensive or flying. What is the first word that comes to mind if I say work? Frustrating, exciting, challenging, boring, looking, who knows? Here's the last one. What is the first word that comes to mind when I say corona? I'd love to hear what some of those answers are right now. I think, though, we can take a couple of calculated guesses. I think some of the first words that come to your mind when I say corona could be words like frustration, chaos, pain, a great South African word, aish, positive, negative. Or maybe you're in a good frame of mind and you say, well, the first word that came to my mind is rebuilding or family time. You say, hey, that's two words, it's cheating, but we'll allow it. But there is one word that I think may tip the scales for a win, if not at least come in a top 3 place. Loss. Loss. The whole world, everyone on planet Earth has experienced some kind of loss in the wake of the tsunami that we officially call the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. I never realized it was a sequel, and a bad one at that. But it's an experience of loss. And what have we lost? Or what are some of the things that we've lost? And Leonard touched on some of those last week, and it's quite an endless list if you think about it. We've lost some things that we've taken for granted. We've lost out on a couple of hugs. We've lost out on the ability to gather as we want to, or we've lost the ability to travel like we want to, or some individuals have lost work. Some have lost huge dream weddings. Others have lost positions and finance. Some have lost income or partial income. Some have lost sense of taste and smell, and some have lost senses of humor. Some have lost hope. And some individuals have lost a loved one. In fact, John Piper put it so well in a book that he wrote just the other day. He said, the coronavirus pandemic is the experience of loss. From the smallest loss of convenience to the greatest loss of life. We've experienced some kind of loss. Think about it. Every person on planet Earth, for once, is almost in the same boat. Experienced some kind of loss, fair enough. Some small loss, and for others, huge loss. Now, maybe you're saying, can we go back to the topic of holidays and chocolates? Because this sounds a bit depressing. And I'm thinking I'd also prefer speaking about holidays and chocolates for 30 minutes, but maybe just looking at this subject of loss is what we need right now. Maybe you say, just give me a chocolate or a holiday, I'll be fine. But others are thinking, absolutely, because I've been looking for some comfort in experiencing some kind of loss. And in fact, that's kind of how I felt when I looked at this subject, and I'm thinking, I'd like a bit of comfort in the bit of loss that I've experienced, and what a privilege to be able to bring some comfort perhaps to you, only to learn that looking for comfort or pursuing comfort is not a great idea. In fact, it's a pursuit that's in vain. You say, what? This is what else I learned. We need to look for something way better and way greater. We need to look for truth. You say, why do you say that? A very smart man in the 20th century, C.S. Lewis, said this incredible line. Let's take a look. He said, comfort is the one thing you cannot get by looking for it. If you look for truth, you may find comfort in the end. If you look for comfort, you will not find, or you'll not get either comfort or truth, only soft soap and wishful thinking to begin with, and in the end, despair. And when I read that line, I still thought, my goodness, that sounds quite harsh. That's not exactly very pleasing to the ear. But when I sat back and I thought about it, I still thought, that is so true. And then it dawned on me, in fact, that C.S. Lewis, in a way, is quoting the smartest man who ever walked the earth. You say, oh, Solomon. No, I said the smartest man. He, in fact, is quoting Jesus Christ, just in a different way. Because Jesus says this line, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. It's the truth that brings hope. It's the truth that brings joy. It's the truth that brings comfort and freedom. So what I did was I thought, okay, let me go on a little bit of a truth quest. And you know what it's like in the movies. If they go on a quest, they grab a compass or they grab a map. So I grabbed my Bible and I thought, let me just go and refresh. And let me just go and remind myself. And perhaps let me go find some more truth. And guess what? It brought me some comfort. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to do together today. Will I be answering the question of why do bad things happen to good people? Or why is there suffering in the world? Good grief, no. But here's what I am hoping to achieve together. That you and I, as we look at truth, find ourselves just a little bit closer to that very smart person. And I'm not talking about C.S. Lewis. We find ourselves just a little bit closer to Jesus Christ. Because that's all that really matters. So here are the 4 truths that I want to unpack very briefly together. Firstly, loss is always a matter of perspective. That's the one truth. The other one I want to look at, that loss always develops patience. And the third one I want to have a look at is that in our loss, we need to hold on to a promise. And then the last one, the fourth one, the most important one of all. How about we hold back on that one and we'll look at it together at the end. So let's look at that first one when I say loss is always a matter of perspective. Now, you know, from time to time we present courses to help you navigate the complexities of life, and various pastors present different courses, and I present a couple, and I just want to be honest with you, one of the hardest ones, or the one I find the most daunting that I present, is our parenting course. And the reason for that is because half the time I don't even know what I'm doing as a parent, let alone try and lecture on it. You see, the way I see it, parenting is like trying to fold a fitted sheet. No one really knows how to do it. And those little time-sucking, money-sucking little critters called children, they don't come with a manual. So half the time I find myself clueless as a parent, let alone having to lecture on it. So what I try and do is from time to time, maybe once a year, once every 2 years, I'll read a book from an author that I really respect. Firstly, just to help myself as a parent, and then, of course, help you as we present that course. So I read a book the other day, a really great book, and this also unpacks a skill that we need to help our pre-teenage girls with, kind of a tool. Now, I can't believe I'm sharing this because I've got the feeling Leonard's going to latch onto this and rip me off, but here we go anyway. Because when I read this tool, this skill that we can help our pre-teenage girls with, and most children, in fact, I still thought, forget about pre-teen girls. I need this tool for myself. And the tool, he's called it the dramometer. The dramometer. Now, what's that about? So he goes on to explain that he used to think that huge pain was when you bumped your small little toe on the side of the bed. He said, until I had kidney stones. He said, then I got the true definition of pain. He said, in fact, I remember being in the doctor's office and they had one of those scales, a scale of 1 to 10, 1 with a happy face and 10 with a miserable face, that doctors try and help patients, like, where exactly are you on this pain scale? You say, what has that got to do with a pre-teenage girl? Then he takes that and he says, listen, we got to help our kids, especially teenage girls, because they live at maximum drama. They love living at maximum drama, and we've got to help them get healthy perspective. And sometimes we need to give them a scale and say, all right, let's just see where this thing that you're experiencing, where is it on a scale? And then teach them that their little friend that's not talking to them, that's not on the same level as, let's say, failing a huge maths exam, which is also not on the same level as losing a loved one. Where is this on the scale? Then he says, let's help them get healthy perspective, that not everything bad that happens in your life as a pre-teenage girl, not everything is a 10. You see, because it's human nature, whenever we experience something that's difficult or tough, or we experience loss, I think it's kind of human nature that we want to push it towards a 10. Now, let me just say for a second, please, I don't want you to misunderstand me and think that I'm being unkind or shallow or thinking that whatever you're experiencing is not bad. No, not at all. I'm trying to help myself and I'm trying to help you that sometimes when we're experiencing loss, maybe we should just take a step back and think for a moment, where is this on a scale of 1 to 10? Do I need to get a bit of perspective here? And very often the next question that comes to mind, and what have I not lost? What do I still have? And when we look at that loss is a matter of perspective, then we kind of realize that wedding plans that have fallen through are not on the same level as the loss of a loved one. Or a holiday that has fallen apart because of corona is not on the same level as losing a job. Let me illustrate how this played out just the other day. Right in front of me, a lady kind of did this skill without even knowing it. So I attended a small group, and she was just sharing, and it's just so special to be a part of a small group when people are sharing with authenticity. She was just sharing how her husband, for the last 12 months, has received no income whatsoever. And by the way, he's highly skilled. And as she's sharing the story, her voice is shaking and quivering as she's just trying to keep it together. And sitting right next to her is her husband with tears in his eyes. You can just see the weight of it all. And as she's sharing, and as I'm even telling you the story just in a short form, you think, wow, that's really bad. And I'm thinking, that's like a 10. But then she goes on to say this. She says, you know, what we're going through is really tough, but I know of a lady at the moment close to me who's busy fighting for her life with brain cancer. Who am I to complain? I have a roof over my head. I've got a wonderful husband. I've got lovely kids. What I'm going through is really tough, and it's almost as if she's saying, it's an 8, or it's a 7, or a 9 even, but it's not a 10. Loss is always a matter of perspective. And God has given us so many verses in the Bible where I think He's saying, hey, maybe just step back a bit and think and get some perspective. And He'll say things, and I'm just going to paraphrase these. You can go check them out for yourself, and we'll give you the references. But He'll say things like, I look after the birds, and I dress up the fields. How much more am I going to look after you? And by the way, I don't want you to be trying to store up treasure here on earth where it gets stolen and the moths eat it. I need you to store up treasures in heaven. Matthew 6. And He'll say things like, listen, it is far more important that you have a good name than super wealth. And he'll go on to say things that, by the way, life is very short here. Your life is like a mist. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. In James chapter 4. And he'll say things like, your present troubles, in fact, are quite small and they're not going to last forever. In 2 Corinthians 4. And then he'll say, in fact, I don't want you to be afraid of anyone who can hurt you physically because no one can touch your soul. God is saying, hey, let's just get some perspective. In our loss, we should always be growing and developing in patience. Loss develops patience. At least I should say it should be developing patience. There are a couple of Bible verses that I think are really well known. You can probably quote them, and sometimes even non-Christians have heard them before and they can quote them. And then there are a couple of Bible verses that, if we're really honest with ourselves, are not really well liked. We don't really like what we read or what we hear. And I want to give you a verse today that I think, funny enough, falls in both categories. It's really well known, but with our fallen ears, it's not really well liked. And it's right here in the beginning of this practical book of James. Right in the start, he says the following, James chapter 1, he says, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles come your way, we could have substituted the word loss. When you experience loss, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Again, we've heard this and you think, I don't know if I like that. Then he goes on to say, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance, another English word we could use there, your patience has a chance to grow. So let it grow. And then he says this incredible line. For when your endurance or your patience, and another translation does say the word patience, for when your patience is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Needing nothing. You think, what an incredible line. James is saying, if your patience is fully developed, then you are fully developed. One of the letters that Paul writes in Colossians, right in the beginning of that letter, he says, hey, I've been praying for you. And when you go and see that prayer, this is what he says. I've been praying for you that you may grow in patience. And James and Paul have clicked this. When we grow in patience, we're growing as an individual. We are growing towards perfection. And maybe you're sitting there saying, Mark, if I'm just honest with you, if you know what I'm experiencing and the loss that I've experienced or busy experiencing, the trade-off, it's just too great. It just feels like it's too much. And I hear you. And then I thought about that line a little bit, and I thought, what are the advantages of being patient? What advantages do patient people have? So I confess, I Googled that. Do you want to hear this list? Let's have a listen to what are the advantages of being a patient individual. Here we go. Patient people make better financial decisions. So that's true. They don't max out the credit card. Patient people are more persistent. They're less inclined to give up. Patient people develop more skill sets. They have better relationships and they attract people. Patient people have better mental, physical, and emotional health. Patient people make better and greater parents, better leaders, mentors, and way better teachers. And lastly, patient people have more peace and greater faith. When you read that list, you think, my goodness, that does sound like Mr. Perfect or Mrs. Perfect. That does sound like someone that is fully developed. And that's what James is trying to point out to us. And this is what Paul was praying, is saying, listen, if you're struggling or you've lost something, guess what? I know your ears don't want to hear this, but rejoice, because you are heading towards perfection. You are heading towards being developed. You are heading towards a better quality of life. In our loss, there's always perspective. There's a chance to grow in patience. And then, of course, we need to hold on to a promise. Looking at life through the eyes of a child is just so precious. And very often I think we can learn from children. Fair enough, they should be learning from us, but sometimes as grown-ups, I think we should be learning from them. And there's a particular virtue that especially little children and especially little boys have that I just think is incredibly precious. And it's pretty much this: if my daddy said it, you can believe it. My daddy said it, you can believe it. And you can walk on a playground sometimes and you'll hear a little boy say, my daddy told me, and my daddy said. And sometimes what follows that line can be the most outrageous things. Yeah, and you could hear, my daddy told me he can run faster than a car. And my daddy says he can break metal. And in that little boy's mind, that is 100% true. It is 100% accurate based on one thing only, because my daddy said. Now, of course, that wanes as he grows up and matures and starts realizing the real facts of life, that, oh, good grief, my dad can't run faster than a car. But what if his dad could break metal? What if his dad could run faster than a car? Let's just think for a moment. What if his dad could do whatever he says he could do? What if his dad was all-knowing and all-powerful? What a game changer for the rest of that child's life. What if his dad does say things like, you know what, my son? This thing that you've experienced, this loss, it's okay. I can turn it into something good. Or, my sweetie, don't worry. I have got plans for you, and they are wow. Or, my boy, come here, because Daddy wants to tell you something. I'm going to make everything brand new. Oh, my sweetie, I'm going to take you to a place. It's a place that your mind cannot even fathom. How amazing. You've never seen something like that. You've never heard something so beautiful. In fact, my sweetie, the place that I'm taking you to is so amazing, people don't even know how to cry. What a game changer. You see, every shove from a bully, or every toy stolen or taken out of his hands, or every game that he or she gets left out of, it's okay, because my daddy said. My daddy said. And your daddy has said some incredible things, some unbelievable promises which you need to find, and you need to listen to, and you need to hold on to, because they're true. In your loss, there's perspective. And in your loss, grow in patience. And in your loss, hold on to a promise from Daddy. But here's the fourth one. And this one is the most important. In your loss, there is the presence of a powerful, loving person. 2,000 years ago, an angel visits a very simple, probably uneducated, probably poor individual by the name of Joseph. It's just a simple carpenter. And that angel gives Joseph an instruction, and at the same time, that angel is quoting something written 700 years before the life of Joseph. And he pretty much says, Joseph, the boy that's going to be born to your fiancée Mary, you need to give him this nickname. He has this name, Emmanuel, which means God with us. He was talking about Jesus. And at the end of Jesus' ministry here on earth, Jesus quotes this line. It's probably the last line that he said to us before returning to heaven. He says this, and I've asked them to underline the beginning of that verse because it's so important. His line is, be sure of this. And I want to say that to you today. Be sure of this. I am with you even till the end of the age. And you know what God is saying to us? He's saying, you know what I want you to call me? In fact, you know what you should be calling me? God with Mark. And God with Chris. And God with Chantel. And God with Leonard. God with me. Not God is visiting me, or God is watching me, or not God is keeping an eye on me. God with me. That's his name. And Jesus never promised a life free of hardships, frustrations, or loss. In fact, he warned us to expect it. But this is what he did definitely promise. Him with us. And you may have lost something, and you may have lost someone. But if God is with you, you will never lose. You may have experienced loss, and you may be struggling with loss, but when God is with you, you will never lose. And that's what Jesus needed those disciples to click in that boat that day. The storm is raging. They are busy losing their minds. They think they're about to lose their boat, which is pretty much their livelihood. And in fact, they think they're about to lose their lives. And Jesus sleeps. Why? Because he is all they really need. Experience loss, yes. But with him and him with us, we will never lose. And some of you know, if you're watching this on the Sunday, the date is the 6th of June. And if you're a bit of a history nerd, you will know what day that is. It's now known as D-Day, which has become an English saying. Over 70 years ago, on the 6th of June, 1944, Allied troops landed on a beachhead in the province of Normandy, France, with the mission to take back Europe from the evil Nazis, the Third Reich. And on that day, on the 6th of June, 4,500 men lost their lives. 9,000 men were wounded or went missing in action. Huge losses. But they won the day. Many moments in that day when they are pinned down on that beach with bullets flying and barbed wire and landmines. Do you think they felt like champions? Do you think they felt like they were going to be victorious? I seriously doubt that. But by the time the sun set that day, they held that beachfront. They won the day. And over the next 11 months, they pushed the Germans all the way back to Germany, winning the Second World War. And Jesus says this incredible line. He says, I will build my church. Do you think he's talking about I'm going to build buildings all over the world? No, not at all. What is he saying? I'm getting together a group of people. In fact, I'm getting together an army. And you want to know what the outcome of that army is? What the outcome's going to be for that army? Then he says this line, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. They will win. We will win. And maybe today, you feel like you've pinned down on a beach. And the bullets are flying, and there's just barbed wire, and you've lost. And you say, Mark, I've lost a limb. A limb has been shot off. Or Mark, I've lost a friend. I've lost. God is with us. In fact, I can almost picture Jesus in the trench right there next to me and right there next to you, winking, saying, it's okay. Keep going. You'll see we're going to win. In your loss, there's the presence of a powerful, loving person. Emmanuel, God with us. Come, let's pray. Thank you for your truth. And God, you are so right. It is truth that sets us free. It is your truth that brings hope, that brings joy, that brings comfort. God, I don't know what truth people needed to hear today, but may they hold on to that truth, that maybe they needed just a little bit of perspective. Or maybe they needed to realize that in this loss, they're growing and developing in something so important, patience. Or maybe they forgot that there is an incredible promise that you, Daddy, have for them. And all of these, may we just sense your power, your love, and your presence. Amen.